I never really wanted to be famous. What I'm passionate about is helping people with their money and single parents and people who are doing it tough and people who are less fortunate than us.
From Mamma Mia, I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter, candid conversations that count. Scott Pape is a terrible celebrity. He's sold 1.2 million copies of his first book, Barefoot Investor, and he's changed the lives of 1 million Australians and probably made a lot of money by doing so. He's been featured in the New York Times, and yet, when you talk to him, he's got no attitude. He is incredibly humble. The last time I spoke to Scott on this podcast, the Barefoot Investor had just gone mainstream. It had gone from a cult-like secret that only your super smart friends knew about to having everybody talking about it. Everyone seemed to be buying the book, buying copies of the book for their friends, having little credit cards with the word splurge on it. And during all this time, Scott and his wife Liz, along with their 2 young sons living on their farm, were taking it all in. A year, a lot more sales, a lot more fame, and a new baby girl later, and the Barefoot Investor book continues to top the bestseller charts. It just keeps selling. But alongside it now is another book, and it's also by Scott Pape. His second book, The Barefoot Investor for Families, is wrestling for position at the top of bestseller charts with his first book. And although the first book declared that it would be the only money guide you'll ever need, this one is different. Because after writing and talking to a lot of people, Scott realised that if he really wanted to change the way people thought about money, he'd have to get them young. So how's he going to do that? Well, here's Scott Pape. I wanted to take you back to the past year and watching the success of your first book. You're now the most successful non-fiction author, I think, of all time in the history of the world. You've sold something crazy like 1.3 million books.
Yes.
And what people need to understand about that is to be considered a bestseller in Australia, you have to sell about 5,000 books. So there's actually no word for what you are and what you've achieved. People talk about it being an overnight success, but you, as you say, you've been doing this for 15 years. But as this has sort of happened, you know, tell me a little bit about the last 12 months of your life when this thing that you've done has just exploded and you have become sort of embedded in the psyche of our culture. What's that been like?
It's been interesting because, you know, I wrote the book from the farm. You know, I understood that there would be, I knew people would read it, right? So I was thinking maybe 20,000 copies. Like, I didn't think people really, you know, read books anymore or bought books. So I was like, you know, this is a good thing to do because I went through a personal sort of tragedy where we lost our home and everything in it. And I thought, you know, this is actually really, I want to get everything down, you know, because I have so many people asking me questions. I want to just, basically it's like me sitting down on a stool and at a pub and telling my mate how to manage their money. And I never expected it to, you know, go crazy. Like even the audio book is, Audible were telling me it's 400,000 hours of downloadable. People have listened to the Barefoot Investor. So that's been kind of interesting because I spend 90% of my time on my farm with my kids. I don't do a lot of public speaking anymore. I don't do a lot of social media or anything like that. You know, generally I'm happiest when I'm home with my kids and my family. And I found it to be quite interesting, you know, like even to the point of I get recognised a lot more now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of interesting, the idea that a lot of people have read the book and it's helped a lot of people, which has been really, really, really cool. But that idea that you then become a bit of a public figure, that has taken a while to adjust to. And I'm not sure I never really wanted to be famous. I don't want, even though I'm sort of maybe a C grade, famous now. I never really wanted to be. It's not something that's ever really interested me. I like helping people, but yeah, that idea of doing even the whole media thing of talking about myself, I find to be really disconcerting. And my wife doesn't like it, and we've tried to keep the kids out of it as much as possible because it's just not who we are. I have an Instagram account, but it's got 3 photos on it. So, you know, I'm just not somebody who ever dreamt to want to be famous. And for me, in a little country town where I live, people are pretty cool to me, but, it's like, oh, here's this big shot, look at him, what he's trying to do. And generally, I guess I'm the opposite of that, I think.
You're a terrible celebrity.
I am a terrible celebrity because I don't go to anything. My default is no. I don't like going to celebrity events or anything. It's just not something that interests me at all.
Have you started to get those invitations to be on reality shows like Survivor and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here and Dancing with the Stars?
I did, actually. Yes, I have. And I'm just like, no. Like, you gotta pull me with pliers to get on ABC News Breakfast, let alone going on Survivor, for God's sake. Like, I would be the worst.
How old are your kids now?
So I've got 9 months, nearly 3 and 5.
So your 5-year-old is probably the one who's got the biggest sense of what's going on. So you took him to see your book either being printed or being sold. What happened?
Yeah, so the hard thing for me with my kids is that they've grown up knowing that Dad is on the farm. So my 2-year-old says that Daddy's a farmer. When I'm really not. But he's like, you're a farmer. But my eldest, my 5-year-old, kind of knows that what I do is I'm home all the time. So I'm not like normal dads. I don't go to work. I don't put on the high vis or the suit. I'm kind of just around. And I do drop-offs. And I actually remember I did a drop-off at kinder, and his kinder teacher said, are you between jobs? A bit of sexism there, like just thinking that, why are you in your trackies, dropping off your son during work hours? Got to love a little bit of country sexism there. So I thought, this is not good. I need to show him that I'm a breadwinner. So I took him into the city. We did a father-son trip, and I took him to a bookstore, and I said, Daddy has written, a best-selling book. And, and he's really pleased because he's like, finally, my dad is really somebody, really does work. And we went down there, and I'm like, B, no, it's not there. And then I'm like, hang on a minute, mate. It might be in the general release. And he's like, and he's so cute. He's such a cute kid. And he squeezed my hand, and he said, it's not here, is it, Daddy? And I said, no, mate, it is. And then one of the Dimmicks ladies was coming past me, and she said, come here. And she took us out the back, and it said, no copies of the Barefoot Investor are to be on the shelves because they're stealing. We've got a problem with theft with that book. So I said, there you go, mate. Daddy's book is popular with thieves, or maybe they're just taking the Barefoot Investor money saving principle to the nth degree, right. Just really taking it too hard. But no, and then so what we've done now is I think it's really important to show your kids not only that you work, but that you're passionate about your work. So with my 5-year-old, while I will keep him out of the media, and I don't like him really, I'd like to sort of shelter him from that. He comes to book signings with me, and there are Instagram pictures, I'm told, because I'm not on Instagram, but he will actually do a smiley face on some of the books that we sign, and they become really popular because he signs them. So he loves doing that, and I try and share with him that what I'm passionate about is helping people with their money, and single parents and people who are doing it tough and people who are less fortunate than us. And he kind of gets that's what I'm interested in. That's what drives me. It's not, necessarily the money. It's not necessarily having people stop us in the street. It's because, I'm really passionate about helping people, and he's going to understand that. And I think it's important for any parent to actually show the kids that what I'm doing, I'm really engaged with, because that's how you're modelling for your kids.
The back of his little cute head is on the cover of the book.
Yes.
Is that him, or is that a stunt child?
No, it's not a stunt child. It was like about 4 degrees that day, and I was really cold, and he was tickling me to try and warm me up. But that's him in the photo, and he's actually quite good. We say to him, we asked him whether or not he wanted to be in the shot, and he said yes. And then what was really funny, and it's so cute, is that because he goes to kindergarten, he bought out 3 books in the lead up to mine. So he would come home and he'd have these books that he'd written in kinder. And I'm like, dude, you beat me to the punch, He's just coming out. He's prolific. Like 3 books that came out. And, no, it's really cool. It's one of those things that if you can try and encourage that in your kids and they understand why you do what you do, I think that's half the battle.
When did you become aware that with your first book that it was going to be a pretty big deal?
I reckon when we sent out the pre-order, they said the publisher said, look, you've got to do a pre-order. I said, what's a pre-order? And they said, you just get people to pre-order. I'm like, okay. So I sent out to my email list the first chapter of my book and said, hey, if you want to buy it, you can pre-order it. So we did it through Booktopia. And I remember saying to them, hey, just letting you know, we might get a few orders. And they came back to me going, sure, mate. Every author says that, no worries. And I'm like, I think we might get a few. And then we did it over a weekend and we had tens of thousands of orders. People read the first chapter and went, wow. And that was sort of the first one where everyone was blown away. I think it sort of set a record for pre-sales. And then I didn't really think too much of it. I didn't do a lot of media for it. And I think what happened was people started sharing it with their friends. And it went to 100,000 copies. And then it went to, I think I had breakfast with you and I think it had just hit 200,000 copies and then 500 and then it went to 1 million and then it just went bananas. And people say to me, how do you write a bestseller? And the truth is, I have no idea. I have no freaking idea. I never set out to do it. It's just one of those things that, is just, it goes viral and there's nothing that you can really pre-plan for it.
Life changes when that happens. There's obviously the financial windfall and then there's the power dynamic that changes. So suddenly you've worked hard all your life, but suddenly people are coming to you and wanting to sign up your next book and wanting to offer you all these things. You're one of the most humble and modest people I know who hasn't fallen victim to the tall poppy syndrome, probably because you're just so real about being humble. But how did you choose to use both the money and the power when that changed?
Well, I think part of it is that when something like this happens to you, it sort of made me become more of who I am. So instead of, it made me, I spend more time now with my kids and being on the farm. I haven't gone off and, as we've said, sort of chased fame or anything. But the one thing that I kind of looked at was that, when you sell a lot of books, it gives you a platform and you can choose to do, make a lot of money out of that, brand endorsements and all that sort of stuff, which is something I would never do. Or you can do it for good. And, for years and years and years, I've been trying to get in and talk to people about financial education and, why we need to actually make sure that we, money's a core life skill for people. We know that, our kids going to school now, the jobs that the things they're learning for, jobs haven't been created yet. It's going to be such a different world. But the one thing that we do know is that kids are going to have to navigate their finances, whether that be digital currencies or physical currencies. They're going to have to learn everyone needs to learn how to buy a house and manage their money. But yeah, it's really not taught that well in schools. And so when I had this bestseller, I had the Prime Minister calling me and, the Treasurer and lots of different people. And so what I've really actively tried to do is use the platform to get financial education in schools and to help young people. And really with this book, I never really wanted to write another book, but with this book, I'm like, this is for kids. So this is everything that I ever wanted to do for my kids to actually be taught to the nation. So the other thing that I'm doing is the Barefoot Pledge, which is that for every 10 books I sell, I'm buying a book and giving it to a family in hardship. And then the other thing we did was I donated 10,000 books to every school in Australia, not because I want the kids to read it, because I want parents who hear about the book or maybe to get the school to promote it, to give to those parents who may never have, may not be able to afford the book, to actually be able to borrow it from the school library and actually put it in place. And again, that's why I've done sort of jam jars and not complicated apps, because I wanted to make this accessible to everyone. So a very long answer to a very short question, but what I'm passionate about is really I started out on this journey to help young people, and I think that's where I've gone back to.
There is so much gold in this book. It's hard to know where to start, and it's just such an easy, bright and breezy read. I wanted to ask you about a couple of things in particular. I wanted to start with the idea of the honourable meal.
So one of the things, I guess, that backs that up is that as parents, what we are all kind of scared of, and I spoke to thousands of parents, I surveyed them, I really wanted to get to the guts of what is it that we're trying to do with our kids. And one of the big things that came back to me was sort of the same fear that I have, is that we are living through just this brief moment in time, the wealthiest time in human history. We have never been wealthier than we are right now. And just by luck, we are living in one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. So what we are all worried about as parents is our kids are living a very different life to perhaps the ones that we did. You know, like my parents, their honeymoon was in Swan Hill, a little country town. I didn't go overseas. My kids now go overseas with me. And I think the guilt that we all have is maybe our kids don't realise just how good they've got it. And you can lecture to them, but they've got no reference point. They don't care. Just because your childhood sucked doesn't mean mine has to. So it was that idea of how do you actually get your kids to value things and not have their hand out and be entitled little brats. So the honourable meal, my best mate lives in Japan, and he told me about this. He's got kids the same age as mine. And he talks about this thing which is called the honourable dinner. And what it was that at primary school, a bell goes, the teachers leave, and the kids don, these little kids, 5 years old, 6 years old, they don chef's hats and white coats, and they serve up dinner or lunch to their classmates. And it's called the honourable meal time. And then when it's finished, there are no cleaners, there are no teachers. They go, they take the dishes and they wash them, and that is known as the honourable meal time. It's meant as something that you do because you are part of a collective. You do it because you're part of a group, and there's honour in that. So what I wanted to do with Barefoot Money Meals, so I focused again this all around Barefoot Money Meals, was to say, I don't want to have my kids with pocket money going, hey mate, can you set the table? And they put their hand out and go, how much are you going to pay me? That is not what I want to do. I think that's creepy. I think the whole thing about kids and money can be a little creepy. I wanted my kids to actually have dinner duties where the payoff is they get fed, but they need to set the table, they need to help with dinner, they need to clean the table, do the dishes, because that's what we do in our family. That's the honourable meal time.
I like how you draw the distinction in the book between the 3 jobs. Each kid needs to do 3 jobs to earn their pocket money. But then there are other things that they should do just because they're part of a family and it's expected.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that comes back to the heart of it, that really for me, this whole idea of doing 3 jobs, essentially, if you've ever read a kid's money book or a personal finance book, which I'm sure you haven't, Mia, but trust me, I have in doing the research in it. And it's like, a lot of these things have got like a chore chart and it's got like 91 things. And it's like, it starts like you're a drill sergeant. From the moment they wake up, they have to have, their bed made, and it goes right through to, teeth at night. And it's like, you are not going to do that. Who the hell is going to be able to run their life like that? So I wanted to boil it down to 3 jobs that your kids can do on a Sunday afternoon, get it done. It really is just basically creating a link between I work and I get paid. And that is a link that not everybody has. I deal with 35-year-olds that haven't worked that out yet. So that's kind of the deal with my version of pocket money.
One of my biggest challenges and anxieties, I suppose, around money and my kids is that they just don't see it anymore. And you write about this in the book too. I don't have cash. I mean, poor buskers, talk about their economy being disrupted. No one has cash anymore. It is just literally pay wave, pay wave, pay wave, pay wave. To the point where actually going to the bank, the only reason I go to the bank now is to get pocket money to give to my kids.
Yeah.
What do we lose when we don't have actual money and show our kids how much we're spending?
I think the idea is the casino operators had worked this out decades ago. And what they did was they said, we're going to take your real money and we're going to give you plastic chips, because that disassociates that you're actually spending this month's rent on, the roulette wheel.
Yeah.
And it disassociates ourselves. So for me, the reason I've done jam jars, again, is kids are visual learners. So what you want to do, and it doesn't matter how much money, right? The money is just a prop, right? But what I want my kids to do is to actually see the harder they work, the more money goes up in the jam jar. That's what I want to show them, because you need to make it real for them, because if it is apps and things, it's just that much harder. Now, I think obviously when the kid turns 15, get a part-time job, absolutely they should be dealing with banks and learning about all that stuff. But the idea, the banks and other people would say that they need to be on PayWave and stuff, they actually don't understand behavioural finance, and they're generally trying to sell you something. So the reason I did jam jars is, one, because I've got no barrier to push. Like, I don't want anyone to sign up to any bank accounts or anything. And two, because I wanted this to be really accessible for everybody. Everyone's got a jam jar. Everyone can get some shrapnel that they can put in there, and the kids actually see it, and that's what creates that. It's the behaviours, that's what it's about.
You say that every teenager over the age of 15 should have a part-time job.
They should, even if it's a few hours a week.
Yeah.
I mean, my views, so the first thing is, and I'm a real believer in this, that at age 15, your teen should go out and get a job. And let's just break this down. So the first thing that a 15-year-old has to do in order to get a job is they have to sell themselves to somebody, someone external from the family, someone that doesn't think that they're a precious snowflake. So they actually have to think through all the stuff that they have done, and they'll say, I've got no experience. That's fine. No 15-year-old has experience. But they have to go back and actually look at how they can sell themselves to someone. Like, I actually did this with a case study in the book, a young girl who has an acquired brain injury, and I was her coach, and we coached her to actually get a job. And what we were doing is, she was like, I've got no experience, I've got an acquired brain injury, nothing I can do. And I spent probably 45 minutes just going back through her life and all the amazing things she's done and the adversity that she'd been able to triumph over, and why she's such a caring person now, because she's had people in the past that perhaps haven't been as kind to her, and how she won school awards. And there was just so many amazing things that she had done that she'd completely forgotten about, because she's 15 and, perhaps doesn't have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is like the first thing, because they get external validation when they get a job, because somebody outside of the family says, hey, you're really good and I want you on my team. That's the first thing. Second thing, they actually have to hang out with people that they normally wouldn't, again, which is a really important lesson. Hopefully they're getting, they're working with a boss who's a bit of a hard ass. Hopefully they're working over a grill that gives them acne, maybe, a bit of hard yards.
Yeah.
Then what they have to do, they have to set up a bank account. They have to learn about tax. Later on, they might have to learn about superannuation. So for me, even if it's a few hours a week, that's a life experience that you want your teenager to have. And what I say is, to the parents, you should actually drive them to and from work, right? Because the average person is going to work, 100,000 hours or something over their working life. They'll spend the majority of their life. We spend the majority of our life working, not with our family, working and sleeping, basically. So wouldn't it have been great when you were at, 1 hour of day one of your job, of your working career, that someone, a mentor like your parents, said, mate, this is how it works. You're going to have the slackers. You're going to have people that are going to, not try and do the work, that are going to bitch and complain. That's like 70% of Australian workers. We just totally unengaged with our jobs.
Yeah.
But you can actually shape that with your kids. I think that, again, is a moment that you can share with your teen. After a couple of weeks, they won't give a crap and they'll just be like, it's Macca's, I don't really care. But that first week or two, when they get their first pay slip and they're finding out about super and bank accounts and stuff, that is the time that you can really shape your kids. And I'm a real believer in grasping those moments, because as parents, there ain't a lot of those, but you need to take them when they come.
You talk about, this is one of my favourite parts, you say early on, as parents, it's okay if we get most things wrong, as long as we get a few big things right. What do you think those big things are?
So I've actually put them into this thing called a Barefoot 10, because the one thing, again, when I spoke to a lot of parents, is every single parent wants to give their kids the best shot at life. Every parent. My view is that if you give kids large amounts of money, you are actually hurting them. You don't, if a kid thinks they're getting a huge inheritance, it can really stymie their ambition and it can really screw them up. And I've seen that over and over again. So really, what is it that we could do? How do you quantify whether you've actually done enough? Have you done enough to prepare them? And I've got this thing called the Barefoot 10. It's in the book. And it basically is a checklist. And it says that, by the time your kid leaves home, if you can go through these 10 things and you've checked them off with them, they're going to be okay. You, parent, have done your job. So they're really practical things like opening up a high-interest online savings account, making sure they get a job, and they're all tied into the Barefoot money meals that parents do every Sunday night with their ritual of just talking to their kids about money.
I went through the Barefoot 10 with my 21-year-old last night, and he is a barefooter now. So we're living both the books at home, the first book and the second book, and we both got 9 out of 10. So the only thing that...
Interesting.
He has got a credit card, but everything else did it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, and that's, again, I just really wanted to make, hopefully the thing that I try and do with my books is to make things really practical. And I genuinely think that if you go through those 10, the Barefoot 10, which you can see in the book, you've done your job. But the other thing that I say to parents is, imagine what your life would have been like if you'd gone through those 10 things. You'd had a low-cost super fund, you'd set up a fee-free bank account, you got a glowing reference from your boss, you ditched credit cards, never got one. It's just those things that you'd be like, my life would be a lot different today if I'd done those than perhaps now. And again, for me, the really powerful thing is I don't expect parents to be financial whizzes. The truth is that nearly half of the population don't understand money. They don't have the numeracy skills to function on a day-to-day level. So this book has said, let's turn that on its head. And even a single mum that's had credit cards can actually sit down with their teen and say, I've made a lot of mistakes. And if I didn't have a credit card, things would be so different right now. And it's those real conversations that you can have with your kids they're the ones that are really going to stick.
I really like the way that I tried to take credit for the fact that Luca got 9 out of 10, but it's actually just because he bought your book and read it. So thank you for bringing up my child.
That's good. That's what I want to do. I want this whole other book is designed not for me to be telling your kids, but for you to be the hero, because really what we're talking about is values, right? Because we all know, everyone knows a really academically smart person who is just screwed up with money. They are just completely stupid with money. And so what we're really trying to do with our kids is not get them to do any creepy colour in, what's a 50-cent piece. It's values. It's saying, I enjoy working hard because I like to work hard and do my best. And I like to spend money wisely. I like to save because then I've got financial security, and that's really important for girls, obviously. Yes. And I want to give because I understand that there are people within my community who may not come out and say that I'm struggling, but they are. And that's why I partnered or focused on Food Bank, because Food Bank is an amazing not-for-profit organisation that doles out thousands of meals a day. And the connection I made for kids is that I think it's like 1 in 5 kids turn up to school not having eaten. And the idea is that you can explain to your kid, you can't see tummies rumbling, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And every kid understands what it's like to be hungry. You can't focus, you can't concentrate, and you become irritable. And it's just that thing that if you can encourage your kids to understand that not everyone is as fortunate as them, you're building up empathy. And that, to me, again, is another value. And I don't think that can be taught in schools. I think it has to be taught at home over the dinner table to say, in our family, we look after people in our community.
Yeah.
So again, it's value stuff.
So it's the 3 jars, the splurge,
smile, and give.
Splurge, smile. Yeah, because smile sounds better than save, right?
It does. Well, really what you're doing is just saving up for something that is going to make you smile. And that's the idea.
And I've tried that before and sort of drifted off it, as you identify that so many people do. But what I loved is how you answer so many of the questions that have tripped me up. Like the fact that, first of all, you suggest that pocket money is based on, is it $1 for your like $1 per year? It's
$1 per year per week. So, again, that could be a 5-year-old could earn $5 a week. But, the other thing is that there would be a lot of single income parents that would go, dude, I can't afford that. And the truth is that it's not about the money. Can I say that again? It is not about the money. It's a prop. So it could be 10 cents per year per age. It really doesn't matter. And it's your money anyway. It's whatever you can afford. But really what it is it's not just getting them to work. It's getting them to divvy them up into those jars. That is where the real lesson's learned. You know, parents spend a fortune on private schools and stuff. But if you can, for me, if you can teach these values with your kids, if they can be grateful, if they can save and keep themselves safe, if they can spend wisely, you know, you're 3/4 of the way there. I deal with people that are just completely screwed up every day of my life. If someone had have sat them down and taught them these values and given them these experiences, their life would be a lot different.
I also love how you're not prescriptive about how much they put in each, that part of the plan is that they have to put something in each jar each week, but they can decide how much goes in each jar. And I think, because that's something also I've struggled with, like here are the 3 jars and you have to divide it equally, or do you?
No.
Yeah, and I love that. So giving them some autonomy, giving them some responsibility.
And also, it's a long game. And for me, with my kids, is that we do things with gift jars that makes them feel really proud, that are part of our story. So, you know, when our house burnt down, we had a lot of people that were very kind to us. And what we've instilled within our family, and it's not for everyone, this is just for ours, is that it feels good to give, to help people. That's part of who we are. That's what we do. And if you can build that into your kids, you know, you and I have spoken about this before. I mean, the idea of being charitable and to be helpful to people is the best emotion. It's so much more fulfilling than buying shit, you know. And if you can teach your kids that and let them experience it, I mean, that is just a really good thing that you can build into your family story, your family legend.
I quite like buying shit, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go.
I do like buying shit. I wanted to ask you about Flogglebox. It's a game you've invented. Tell me about Flogglebox.
So Flogglebox is this idea that kids are being marketed to. We're all being marketed to like never before. So if you're sitting on the couch watching TV with your kids, what we do is try and work out very quickly when the ads come on, what are they trying to flog us? And it's like the first person who can guess wins. And then you deconstruct the message that they're doing. Does the burger really look like that? You know, why is this person smiling? Is that how it really works? So again, it's just trying to scramble the messages that are coming through to your kids constantly, so that you can be, I guess, a little bit more of a skeptical consumer. Because I think that's, again, what kids need. You need to be skeptical about all the messages that marketers are implanting into our kids.
My kids love picking out the product placement on The Bachelor.
Yeah, there you go. And also, you know, on the block, we're going to Mitre 10 again, Dad. Yeah, of course.
You talk about Liz a lot, and I know that you guys are a real team. How's the dynamic between you two? I mean, you're in the trenches with having little kids, you suddenly having this global fame, you know, you've been in the New York Times, it's sort of gone next level. How have you stayed tight through that in terms of your relationship and her being the wind beneath your wings, and how she's had to adapt her career around yours and around the kids?
I mean, I think it helps that we're genuinely best friends. And it also helps that, you know, I met Liz when she was my producer on the project. So she's very aware of the media. One of the things that I don't read anything that is written about me. I haven't read the New York Times. I don't read anything, good, bad, or otherwise. I don't read anything. Liz reads everything and, well, most things. And so we have the fact that she has been in the media helps, because she can sort of drown things out and filter things for me on the No Filter podcast. And yeah, I mean, it's just a relationship built on trust, and that also that most of the stuff that is written doesn't really matter. You know, most of this, I don't really care what people say about me that much. The only people that I really care about are my family. So, you know, I think we have a fairly healthy understanding of what matters. And for me, you know, if I had have gone off and bought a Ferrari and been on Instagram and stuff, maybe she would be a little worried. But the fact is, since writing this book, it's made me become more of who I am, and I spend more time with them and less time sort of, chasing things down. My standard answer to pretty much everything is no.
And as far as what people think, your daughter is only 9 months and she can't talk yet, so I imagine she just expresses herself with like dirty nappies and dribbling.
And that's the whole thing. We've got 3 kids now, so the compound craziness
keeps you real.
Is just like 2 boys and a girl. It has been, so in the last few years, written a book, written another book, house burnt down, 3 kids. It's crazy town all the time. I love it, but there isn't a lot of time to self-reflect. It's just we're on. And I'm just lucky that Liz is very much part of the business, and she's just someone that I just respect so much. So I couldn't have done it. I couldn't do it without her.
We ran a story just recently by one of our senior writers, Claire Stevens, who's a millennial. She's in her late 20s, and she suddenly realised that she has no money. And she said to her twin sister, "Where is my money? Have you been stealing my money?" And her sister said no, and they sort of went and had a look in her bank account and realised that she'd subscribed to about 11 different things, streaming services, Stan, Netflix, all these different things. And there was just all this money coming out of her account every week. Various apps. One of the Kardashians had an app that she can't ever remember to subscribing to, but she must have. Is that kind of typical of millennials? What are you seeing in terms of the results of millennials and perhaps not having such a great financial education, which has to be our fault because a lot of us are baby boomers and Gen X parents?
Look, I think the research suggests that the most financially illiterate of our population are kids that leave school. So it's school leavers. And one of the things that I really struggle with is that if they haven't learned it when they're 18, there is a whole industry that rises up, whether it be Afterpay, whether it be payday loans, whether it be credit cards, designed to get young people to act on their impulses, to spend money they don't have. And, what happens is, and I deal with this all the time, at age about 24, 25, that young person who leaves not having any financial confidence and any clue suddenly turns around and says, look, I am shit with money. I've got the credit card to prove it. I've got the Afterpay bills to prove it. I'm no good with money. And once that takes hold, it colours your entire life, right? Because you have no confidence, and it colours, your friends, where you go, the house you live in, the jobs you take, the partner you choose in some instances, it colours your entire life. And so that's why I'm really passionate about saying what we really need to do with our kids is build up their confidence. You need to build up their confidence so when they're 18, they can literally go out and seize all the opportunities this amazing world has. But if you don't, once that mindset happens, it's very hard to get out of. I'm thankful for some reason my book has been able to sort of jolt people and hopefully give them back, build up that confidence. That's sort of the killer app behind my last book. It's that you can go in and, the first thing within the first 20 pages is you're moving to a no-fee, high-interest bank account. And for a lot of people, they're like, hey, I've just made the first smart financial decision maybe that I've ever made with a beer in my hand. This is awesome. So you're building up people's confidence, and I guess that's kind of what I've tried to do with millennials. I think, it's that idea that these little apps, the streaming services, I was speaking to one of the biggest car dealers in Australia, and his view is that cars are going to become like mobile phones. It's just going to be a payment. Right, so you don't have to worry about the $30,000 for a car. It's just going to be easy monthly repayment. And when you go to the US, you see that's how they market it. Don't worry about the big cost. It's just monthly payments. And that's what this industry is very, very good at getting money out of us, and they're much better at that than we are at understanding how to manage our money. And so we are at a very much they've got one up on us on that.
A lot of women are loving Afterpay. What's your advice around using Afterpay?
Look, I mean, I used to love lay-by. The idea that you would go to the back of the shop, line up, put your money down, and it's delayed gratification because after you made that final payment, you got to take it home. Afterpay is kind of the millennial version where you get the stuff and then you make the. I think that the industry, there are men in skyscrapers right now devising new ways to get people to spend money they don't have for things. And so that is my default position, that if you don't have the money right now, you shouldn't buy it, because what happens is you are giving up your security. You're giving up your peace of mind when you buy things that you don't have the money for. So I understand, and people talk to me about credit cards. It's okay if you pay them off and all the rest of it. But the truth is that I'm the Barefoot Investor, and I see the ramifications of this. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is that a lot of people get themselves into a lot of financial stress, and it's really not healthy.
Scott, I love you. You're amazing.
Thank you, Mia.
You're so helpful.
I try and be helpful. I don't always, get it right. And hopefully it's always a nervous thing for, the first week of the book. So the book's been out 2 days now, and it's like no pressure after the first one. Is this one going to do as well? And it's just been really lovely to get the feedback from the Barefoot community and seeing all the kids with their jam jars and stuff. So hopefully it makes a difference. Again, for anyone who's listening, you don't have to buy the book. It's in your kids' school. I've donated a copy. Try it out, see if it works, and just spend time with the kids, because the number one way for building financially strong kids is to be financially strong yourself.
Thanks for listening to No Filter. If you want to buy Scott's book, either of his books, if you haven't got them both already, because it seems like most people in Australia already do, go to apple.co/Mamamia. You can find all the books of all the people that I interview here on No Filter. If you love this show, tell us about it in our podcast reviews on Apple Podcasts, and tell a friend. The more people that know about the show, the more we can keep making it for you. No Filter is produced by Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman. I'll see you on Mamamia.